So, by the advantages and disadvantages, we came to know that friction is, though it is a bad, but it is a good. So, what are the goods and the bads in the friction? So, how much extent we can use the friction? We need it, but in limits.
Children, today we shall learn about pros and cons of frictional forces and how can friction be reduced or increased. We may think friction is bad, but it is necessary too. Can you walk on ice? It is very difficult because there is little friction as the surface of ice is very smooth. Friction is required for us to walk. You must have observed that you cannot write on smooth glass with chalk, but you can write on rough blackboard with it. This is because rough surface of the blackboard rubs off some chalk particles which stick to the board to create lines. Cars can also run on roads because of friction. Tires must get good grip of road surface for the car to move properly. Imagine if there was no friction between the tires of the car and the road, then it could not have started or stopped or turned to change the direction of motion. So, now you know why friction is so important. Snowy road is slippery as friction reduces because of snow particle and water. If anyone tries to do cycling on snowy road, then tires may slip causing accident. If you have a cycle, you must have noticed the brake pad on the wheel. When you apply the brake, these rough pads start pressing against the cycle rim and the wheel comes to stop because of heavy friction. When you rub a matchstick against the matchbox, friction causes the heat which is necessary to light the stick. Friction is often called necessary evil because it is very necessary though it acts against the force we use. So, in some situations where friction is desirable and we would like to increase it. How to increase friction? If you observe, the sole of your shoes is grooved. It is done to provide the shoes better grip on the floor so that you can move safely. Similarly, the treated tires of cars, trucks, etc. provide better grip with the ground. Gymnasts, kabaddi players rub coarse substance like chalk powder in hands for better grip as it absorbs sweat and increases the friction for better grip. But friction is not good always. Friction is an evil too. It wears out materials whether they are screws or soles of the shoes or even parts of the machines. In many machines, friction between the parts cause wastage of energy and even wear of the parts. So, in some situations where friction is undesirable, we would like to minimize it. How to decrease friction? People apply oil, grease, etc. between the moving parts of the machine to decrease friction between the parts. These substances form a very thin layer and the moving surfaces don't rub against each other directly. Substances which reduce friction are called lubricants. We often use oil as lubricant in the hinges of door, isn't it? It reduces the friction between the moving parts and the door can swing smoothly without making much noise. Why do you sprinkle fine powder on the carom board? This is because it reduces the friction between the board and the striker and the pieces. So, the striker and the pieces slide easily and smoothly on the board. And how is the fluid friction or the drag reduced? Fluid friction can be minimized by giving suitable shapes to the bodies moving in the fluids. Hence, aeroplanes, jets, etc. have streamlined shape just like the fishes to lower the drag while moving in the air. So to sum up what we learned today, friction is important for many of our activities. Friction can be increased by making the surface rough. The sole of shoes and the tires of vehicles are treated to increase friction. Friction is sometimes undesirable. Friction can be reduced by using lubricants. Fluid friction can be minimized by giving suitable shapes to the bodies moving in fluids. For example, streamlined shape like that of a fish. Pros and
So, how to minimize the friction? How to reduce the friction? We can reduce the friction by giving the oil, lubrication, and by taking the shape of the boats or etc. in some sharp way in the starting point and a curved surface at the sides so that it cut the water and go, it cut the air and go. The aeroplane bodies, ship bodies you see at the front portion is to be sharp and the back it will be widen. So this type of bodies are called streamlined bodies. By this what happens, friction will decrease. Friction of air or friction of water will decrease. And also to decrease the friction, smooth, smooth and polished surface, hard one also useful. That's why the rails are made up of steel and steel wheels both are in highly smooth and highly polished. So both will move without any friction. So friction decreases in that way by polishing the hard surfaces. Polishing the hard surfaces we decrease the friction, and sometimes we use the powder to decrease the friction. As a carom play, you see the powder is spilled on the board so that the tiger will move very smoothly and fastly. So by friction, by in this way also we can decrease the friction. And for increasing the friction, what we do? You see, cycle tires are grooved, cut, and that any car tires you see they are all grooved and cut to increase the friction. And the sole of the shoe you see under the sole how it will be, it will be something cut pieces. So these are all due to decreasing the friction. That means increase or decrease we don't want. We want in the limits.
Methods to reduce friction. Friction can be reduced by reducing the area of contact between the two surfaces. There are different methods to reduce friction. Let us study them in detail. Use of rollers helps in reducing friction. For example, wheels are provided to the objects to reduce friction. Wheels not only reduce the area of contact between the two surfaces, but also allow smooth movement. Use of lubricants reduces friction. Machines are oiled from time to time to reduce friction and wear and tear of the machinery. With the use of lubricants, a thin layer is formed between the two surfaces. This reduces friction, as the moving surface do not directly rub against each other. Some of the well-known lubricants are oil, grease, and graphite. Smooth surface reduces friction. Smooth and hard surface reduces friction to a greater extent. For example, railway lines and wheels on the train are made from iron. They are smooth and hard. This reduces friction to a greater extent. Use of powder in reducing friction. fine granules of powder function as rolling balls. This helps in reducing friction. Best example to understand this is the game of carom board, where powder is frequently used for the smooth movement of coins. Shaping reduces friction. Special designing of objects is essential to reduce friction and improve efficiency. The vehicles are streamlined to improve their speed. They are pointed or narrow in front and curved on sides to reduce friction.